This Mike Gundy-led Oklahoma State ball club could be eyeing a major turning point for homecoming with Hauss Hejny. So you're saying there's a chance.
You are Locked On Oklahoma State, your daily podcast on the Oklahoma State Cowboys, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Howdy, y'all, and hello, all. Welcome back to Locked On Oklahoma State, your top stop for all things Cowboy and Cowgirl related. My name is Cody Stovall. I want to thank you kindly for stopping by to make this your first listen. We're available on all of your podcasting platforms, visually as well on YouTube. Find me personally on X at Aldeo State. Today, we're partially brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment matter more, especially right now when new customers can bet just $5. And if your bet wins, you'll get $300 back in bonus bets to use all across the app. Make sure that you download the app today and get with FanDuel for your capitalization moment. The capitalization moment for Oklahoma State could be just simply getting by until Hauss Hejny returns. I don't necessarily think that this is a knock per se on Zane Flores. Zane Flores hasn't necessarily gotten a lot of opportunities thus far at Oklahoma State. And the offensive line, having some injuries here and there and having some shuffleboard moments already is kind of not allowing Zane to flourish. But what Hauss Hejny clearly does is he negates the defensive end and the front seven's ability to pin their ears back and not respect the mobility as much as somebody like Zane Flores. Zane can run. We know that. We've seen that happen. But when the plays break down, you're seeing it all across college football, even specifically when you look at the Big 12, what Nico Marchiol did against Pitt, seeing what Devin Dampier is doing right now at Utah. I think last year, Green was very comparable at West Virginia to what we could potentially see out of Hauss Hejny. Avery Johnson, I know they're not doing all that great right now, but Kansas State has themselves in a position that they have a lot of flexibility with Avery Johnson. So having a mobile quarterback isn't the end-all, be-all, although you could make the argument that's kind of where college football is shifting. Our main man, Hauss Hejny, in the first 3 drives of the season, gave everybody a taste of what it looked like to have a dude at that spot again. Oklahoma State is used to having dudes at running back and wide receiver, and we're going to talk about that a little bit more in segment 2, but it makes it more difficult when you don't have the offensive line ability to not only open massive holes for the running backs, that the running backs naturally have to see the cutback lanes as well, but so it's not all on the offensive line, but the idea that we're going to be able to keep Zane up through the entirety of the season and find ways to get the most out of the offense, it's going to be difficult. I fully anticipated against Oregon that we would do something creative, whether it be putting Sam Jackson, former quarterback at TCU and Cal, in there for some different packages just to kind of give some eye candy, maybe some diamond formation, maybe getting Gavin Freeman in the backfield to spice it up a little bit. We didn't see any of that against Oregon. It's seemingly like we tried to go out there and play 11 on 11, hat on a hat, and beat them in a man scenario. We did just have this week off, and that week off is going to allow some things to transpire that's going to give Oklahoma State a chance, not only in Tulsa, but moving forward, because after Tulsa, we got to take down Baylor. Sewell Robertson is an absolute problem, but the running game could carry us through in a lot of major ways. So having Hauss Hejny as a part of this running game to give defenses an extra layer is what it's going to take for Oklahoma State likely to get the most out of the season. Now, it seems as though that the locker room is still pretty tied in. They're pretty ready to rally around each other and Mike Gundy and make a little bit of a run at this thing because they don't want people leaving that sour taste that Oklahoma State versus Oregon is going to be the representation of the Cowboys moving forward. There's still a lot of pride in that locker room. There's still a lot of incentive for the Cowboys to get some things together, not only just because of Mike Gundy, but simply because there is a message that needs to be sent for all of these coaches and these players. A lot of us were insanely excited about the talent acquisition, but the staff acquisition had me more excited. But let's call it spade a spade. In that game against Oregon, both Doug Meacham and Todd Grantham, they looked like they were fighting above their weight class. The chess game, we were not able to play much of that. And that really made Zane Flores look devoid of enough talent to get Oklahoma State through the course of the season. We have to go back to the fact that they got rid of Garrett Rangel, they got rid of Malawake Smith, 2 guys that understood the lay of the land, knew what they needed to do within the system, even if the system was going to change a little bit. So getting rid of those guys for the upside of a Zane Flores does still have to have us pretty excited. But the news that Hauss Hejny could potentially be back for homecoming, that puts us in a position where we just got to fight and scratch and claw our way to what? 2-2. We got Tulsa coming up. Then we have Baylor at home. We go on the road to Arizona, which now looks like a much more difficult game than preseason. And then we have Houston before we get to the Cincinnati game, homecoming. So should we beat Tulsa? Yes, we should. And we're going to talk a little bit more about why in segment 2, but you should be able to beat Tulsa. Can we beat Baylor? Not with the way things have looked recently, but Baylor does have a decent amount of deficiencies defensively that I think that we could definitely find a way to exploit. But all of this is only going to matter because of that timeline. All right, so if we go over, I don't think we'll lose to Tulsa. But if we did lose to Tulsa, and then we lost to Baylor, then we lost to Arizona, then we lost to Houston, let's just say that happened. That's 4 games in a row that we'd be losing, 5 games in a row. And we would be, 1-5? Going into homecoming. In that scenario, it doesn't make a lot of sense for Hauss Hejny to come back and put himself at a jeopardized position. I think we've seen enough to know that no matter what transpires throughout the course of the season, whether Mike Gundy is going to be the man for the next 1 year, 3 year, 5 years, or Oklahoma State is going to move in a different direction, the common consensus seems to be, we need to find a way to lock down Hauss Hejny. So I think one thing that we could look at in this timeline is, what is Oklahoma State's record? Because I have a feeling that if we're like 1-4, 1-5, or whatever the case may be, then it doesn't really behoove Hauss Hejny to come back, but put himself in another position to potentially have an injury when there might be some uncertainty within the coaching realm. So this locker room does need to rally around each other, like it seems as though they are doing as of right now, because it's only one loss, right? At the end of the day, that loss to Oregon has nothing to do with the Big 12 race. And the Big 12 is still wide open because some of the top teams have had struggle moments. So it does indicate that even some of the top teams in the league, they can be put in a position where they can get caught. The parity in the league, once again, unfortunately, is going to be a difficult proposition for everybody to overcome. If the Cowboys can even go 2-2, all right, so let's say we beat Tulsa. Let's say we lose to Baylor. Let's say we beat Arizona on the road, which would be a massive victory, or even Houston at home. All right, let's say we just go 2-2 there. That puts Oklahoma State in a much different position for Hauss Hejny's timeline to return. I think homecoming might be a little quick for that style of injury with him being a mobile quarterback. If he was a pocket quarterback, this wouldn't even be a conversation. If he was a pocket quarterback, he might even be back before homecoming. But he has to utilize his legs, not just for the driving of the ball down the field, but also escaping the pocket and stepping up within the pocket, right? You have to still maneuver, even if you're going to be a pocket passer with that style of injury. I think homecoming might be a little bit difficult, but one thing that might expedite his return is what Oklahoma State is doing on the field. If we do somehow beat Tulsa and then we magically beat Baylor, that does put us in a position to have some success against Arizona. But let's see if we lose that game. Houston is significantly better. That's not a walk in the park by any stretch of the imagination. But if Oklahoma State goes 2-2 in that time frame before homecoming, if we go 3-1, goodness gracious, then you have to look at Hauss Hejny coming back as something that puts Oklahoma State in a position to at least make a run at the conference. Because as we've seen over the last couple of weeks, this conference is wide open. The team that seemingly was ahead of everybody was Iowa State and Utah, but they both looked very, very pedestrian recently. That doesn't mean Oklahoma State is better, right? But if Oklahoma State is 2-2 in the next 4 games before we get to homecoming, then having Hauss back does change the trajectory of the season. Again, I do still think that there's time for Zane to figure some things out. I think this is a moment for Doug Meacham to show the fan base and the country, really, that he can scheme his way into some victories. This is a game against Tulsa where athletically we are more gifted. If you went back and watched this previous game against Navy, there is some exploitable areas that we should be able to take advantage of. Some of that's going to be contingent upon health. Thankfully, it appears as though we've got some dudes healthy. So the exploitable areas that Navy showed us with Tulsa, we should be able to hammer home literally and physically. Speaking of hammering things home, check out the new cap I got rocking on the dome piece today by The Game. I also got this fun old school one back here. Just keep it pretty simplistic. The Game is a hat collection that we all used to remember. I've got the retro vintage one. It's hard to see in camera for all you fine folks out here on podcasts, but it's got like a very unique design. It's not quite, I don't know, corduroy. It's kind of got those corduroy style lines in it, but it's not corduroy. Anyways, the best question you can ask is, if you're going to go sit and rock for your team on front row, what hat are you going to be wearing? And if you're anything like me, I wear hats 24/7. It's got to be The Game. It's a very, very comfortable fit. They have multiple different styles. They take you all the way back to your childhood because they've been that big of a quality product. They've been around since then. This is the same vintage style that fans wore back in the 80s and 90s, as you can tell by this retro Pistol Pete hat I got on here. And guess what? They'll still go for the same price they did back in the day. When you use the code Locked On, you'll get your vintage hat for $16.99. Head on over to thegamecaps.com. That is thegamecaps.com. Grab your team's classic bar or retro logo design and use a Locked On, all one word, for an exclusive discount. Because legends wear The Game. Make sure you get in on this action. Check out this old school retro Pistol Pete hat and this more traditional, sophisticated look from The Game. This is the hat that you need for the season that you need to be excited about. Before we get to the next segment, we got to talk about 5 Hour 2. It's about being energized. Caffeine is just a flavor upgrade if you go with 5 Hour Energy. 5 Hour Energy shot deliver tasty caffeine in 17 bold flavors. Each 2-ounce shot packs the caffeine of a premium 12-ounce coffee plus B vitamins and nutrients with zero sugar and zero crashes. What you're going to love most is how portable they are. Big taste in a tiny shot that you can take literally anywhere and get the boost that you need whenever you need it. You're always going to be reaching for the flavors that they have because it's hard to find one that's not very good, right? It's refreshing, and it gives you a lift before a busy day or a busy event. Regardless of the new flavors that you've been eyeing, it's going to be a perfect time for you to try on the next one. You're going to love how fast they kick in and that it's sugar-free, so you don't have to worry about the crashing out later. Enough with the boring, flavorless caffeine. It's time to give your caffeine a flavor upgrade with 5 Hour Energy shots. Get the favorites you love, or be bold and try something new in-store or online at www.5hourenergy.com or on Amazon today. Make sure that you go to 5hourenergy.com to get the pick-me-up that you need with 5 Hour Energy. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we did get to hop to segment 2 here. If you watched the Tulsa versus Navy game, you would have saw one thing, and that was the fact that Navy put up like 367 yards. Now, that is, a veer, wing, tee, whatever the one they want to call it, form of triple option that not everybody in the team is going to be accustomed to. So you're used to seeing the Navies and the Armies of the world put up crazy yards on the ground. Navy did have the ability to hit some pop passes occasionally to keep Tulsa on their toes, which is why the score got completely out of control. And unfortunately, Tulsa wasn't really in that game whatsoever. This is a fun kind of game for Oklahoma State because you have the two running backs in Tulsa, former Cowboys, Dominic Richardson and Braylon Presley. They are the 1-2 thunder and lightning combo for the Tulsa Golden Hurricane. Anytime you have the opportunity to go up against some other Cowboys, it's a pretty cool deal. And now that we have Braden Presley on board right after Brennan Presley graduated, maybe this could be a game where we have some players on the sidelines trying to convince Braden Presley to get back in the fold at Oklahoma State. I just think that would be a cool, all-inclusive, kind of nostalgic moment to tie all three Presleys to Oklahoma State. I know that's being selfish. But what we did see is that Navy could run all day on Tulsa. Do we have the same style of offense as Navy? No, we do not. But we do have Trent Howland. And Trent Howland was the dude that was toting the rock against Oregon that looked to be the most competent individual on the football field. Unfortunately, he went out with an injury. Seems as though he's good to go, and he will be full tilt for this upcoming game. Having Trent Howland 100% available is going to be massive, more so than ever than in this particular ball game and moving forward towards Baylor, because Baylor has not been able to stop anybody running the ball much either. They just happen to have a really good quarterback, pretty solid offense. So they're able to score enough points with Sawyer Robertson to keep them in games or get them a couple of victories. But if you can control the game, this could be a big moment. Could be a big game against Tulsa, a big moment against Tulsa, but it should be able to carry over to Baylor as well. So if we have success running the ball against Tulsa, that means we should be able to have some hope going into the Baylor matchup of also being able to run the ball. We likely want it to be a tempo, high-octane style of attack this season. Clearly, we're going to have to change some things, adjust some things. Does that necessarily mean we need to change the zone blocking scheme? No, probably not. Obviously, Trent Howland was more than capable to utilize that system, even though it doesn't necessarily 100% suit his style or his capabilities. Navy was able to run all over Tulsa. Oklahoma State, with the full complement of Trent Howland and Kalib Hicks, hopefully Sesi Vailahe is ready to rock and roll, because Sesi definitely was the dude who carried the load the most and the best against UT Martin. We didn't get to see him really at all against Oregon. So hopefully we have the full complement back. We got to see a little bit of Rodney Fields in there. And I can tell you that these running backs are very well aware that there is a standard at Oklahoma State, and it is currently not being met. So I fully anticipate that if the running backs are going to send a message, it has to be in this game against Tulsa, because that does, in fact, carry you over into this Baylor matchup. So if you can run on Tulsa significantly, you should be able to have a decent amount of success against Baylor. And then if you can kind of muddy the waters and turn the game into a slugfest, then you have an opportunity. Yes, I would like to see us push the ball further down the field. We did bring in Christian Fitzpatrick, who had some, one-handed Moss-style catches while at Marshall. We haven't seen that. Terrell Davis has made some big plays, but the consistency overall in the wide receiver room has been lacking. Freaky Gavin Freeman, he looks really good when he gets the ball, but he's not getting the ball enough. That could be a conversation for the entire roster. And unfortunately, against Oregon, it was 3 and out, 3 and out, 3 and out, 3 and out. Field goal, 3 and out, 3 and out, 3 and out. Pick six, 3 and out. That's what the game was. So we didn't get in any real rhythm. The only time we drove all the way down the field was with Trent Howland, and then we get down to the goal line and we start throwing it. It's very likely that his ankle was already giving him problems, so maybe that's why we had banded, handing the rock off to the big dude. But Kalib Hicks shows all of the flash, all of the capabilities of being an RB1 for an RBU style school like Oklahoma State, but he misses a lot of holes. And Rodney's been banged up, so we don't know if he's 100% ready to rock and roll for sure or not. But we talked about for Oregon, we had to have some Justin Blackman, Ollie Gordon, Spencer Sanders style of performances, and unfortunately we didn't get any of them. Not on the offensive side of the ball or the defensive side of the ball or special teams. That was just the ugliest performance that I can recall. Being an Oklahoma State fan, I would imagine a decent number of you would agree, because you have to go back to almost statehood before the Cowboys got absolutely shellacked like that one. So there wasn't a lot positively to look forward to, but now we get to look forward to Tulsa. And if there's one thing to look forward to Tulsa, is that we not only have Trent Howland back in the fold, and maybe ran all over them, so that gives you a glimmer of hope. But another individual that I think we should start seeing a little bit more of is hopefully Iowa Shotomide-King. Not 100% sure there, but Jalen Davies is back at practice. So if Jalen Davies is 100% good to go, that significantly boosts the cornerback room. Cam Smith, when healthy, has looked pretty dang good this season. The other side of the field, unfortunately, Cale Smith has had some struggles. He does have a pick. Compliments of Jacoby Oliphant, right, getting in there and getting in on a potential sack that forced the quarterback. But Cale still made the play, still got the pick. But we need more out of that spot. If this is a defense that's supposed to be predicated upon man, we got to have Jalen Davies out there. We got to have the full complement. I would like to see, Eric Lester. But nonetheless, if we are getting Jalen Davies back and he's at practice this week, hopefully that means he's full tilt, ready to go by Friday. If so, that should give us more capabilities to be in more man. But this has been a down year thus far. We're only 2 games into it. But Oklahoma State always has 100-yard receiver, 100-yard rusher, no matter who we're playing typically. And that's not happening. So we need somebody from the wide receiver room to take control and be the guy. Same could be said about the running back room, because there are expectations at Oklahoma State. Those 2 spots carry a large portion of the load, and it's just not happening at the moment. Thankfully, we saw glimpses from Trent Howland in this previous game. If Trent Howland is RB1 for this game, or even RB2 to some degree for that matter, this should be a showcase game for the offensive linemen as well. They need to take pride in what they're doing. They need to take pride in the fact that this is a team that you ought to be bigger, stronger, and faster than. So go out there and send a message, prove a point. Show the fan base that, hey, we've still got some fight in us. Talking about it, it's one thing. You got to go show it. You got to go prove it, because I firmly believe that if you have a blueprint of success against Tulsa, rushing the football, you can turn that over to the Baylor game. Plus, it is nice to see some Tulsa to get some action. But let's also not kid ourselves. We don't get Bedlam. We're absolutely decimating OU and in-state recruiting. The last thing we need to do is give Tulsa hope, because they've been talking about, we can be in Oklahoma State. There's nothing that separates us from Oklahoma State. So it's only a matter of time before we get there. Their AD or something was talking about that recently. You need to be that bullish on your university getting to these levels. But what stokes that flame is if they do beat Oklahoma State. Then that changes that narrative from it being a ha to holy crap, we just gave them what they needed to turn this thing into something. We don't need to have that happen. Beat up Tulsa, because it's a game you have to win. FanDuel is where you need to be paying attention to whenever you're trying to get the end of the season bets in. With the NFL season here, FanDuel is making sure that you're ready for kickoff with cannot-miss offers. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 back in bonus bets to use all across the app. You're going to love using FanDuel because it fits however you like to bet. Player props, building same-game parlays, or even jumping in as the live action unfolds, it makes every game more exciting. So whether you're just watching your favorite team or you're keeping an eye out on a fantasy lineup, it is a quick, easy, and realistically the best way to add a little bit more energy to your game days. So, are you ready to play? If so, download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That is FanDuel.com. Go there to place your first $5 hauler. If you're a winner, you'll get 300 bones back in bonus bets. Before we skedaddle on off of here, I'm also going to remind you, fine folks out here, that Prize Picks is also very heavily invested into this season for you, so you need to get invested with Prize Picks as well. Right now, daily fantasy is the funnest action that you can find. When you're making the right call, it can actually pay off for you. So we all get to make decisions every day, but with Prize Picks, being right means your decisions let you cash in. With football back in action, Prize Picks is the simplest and fastest way to get you in on the action. Just pick more or less on 2 to 6 player projections, and you can turn your takes into real prizes in less than 60 seconds. It's quick, easy, and honestly, the best way to follow along with football. It's the most interactive and the most fun. You're going to love checking projections like Josh Allen, more than or less than 270 passing yards, or Saquon Barkley, more or less than 1 rushing TD. And the best part is, even if one of your picks misses, Prize Picks invented the flex play, so you can still double your money. Download the Prize Picks app today and use the code LOCKEDONCollege, all one word, to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That code is LOCKEDONCollege, all one word, for $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks. It feels good to be right. So get with Prize Picks today so you can go be right. All right, before we get out on off of here, this is the get right game, right? We little segued into this with Tulsa talking about they easily could be Oklahoma State, and there's no difference between them and Oklahoma State, and they have the ability to spin an NIL, and they have the ability to uptick in facilities, whatever the case may be. Not having Bedlam anymore hurts the heart a little bit. So I appreciate that they're trying to stir this thing up a little bit. After Oklahoma State's 3-9 season, there's probably a message in that locker room like, hey, guys, this Oklahoma State team is gettable. And if we're ever going to be up like Oklahoma State, like we've already proclaimed we can be, the first step is knocking down the giant. I think you could say the same thing to some degree about Bedlam, right? One of the biggest reasons that I want Bedlam, and I think it's good for Oklahoma, it's good for all of college football, the Big 12, you name it, is partially because we won 2 of the last 3 years, right? So we finally feel like, maybe not this season per se, but in general, that the separation between Oklahoma and Oklahoma State was pretty insignificant. We've been able to prove that with 2 of the last 3 W's. We want to make sure that we're not going in the wrong direction. You could look at the Oregon game and say, yeah, Oklahoma State hasn't fixed anything. They're not getting any better. This is a problem. And if you're Tulsa, that's probably what is being spread around the locker room. This Cowboy team is gettable. Let's make our athletic director, president, coach, whomever, let's make them look good by beating Oklahoma State. Even if they don't beat us, if we have to go to like overtime against Tulsa, that's pretty much a win for them. So if we're going to get right at any point in time this season, it kind of has to be this game, because some of the earlier season games that appeared to be somewhat manageable, like at Arizona, much more difficult right now. Even Houston coming to Boone Pickens Stadium, it's not a guaranteed dub. I mean, there was statistics put out the other day, percentages, and I think the Cowboys are only favored in one game the rest of the season, and it is Tulsa. I mean, it's hard to argue with that. I can hoot and holler till I'm blue in the face, but the Cowboys have to go out and prove it. So if there's going to be a get-right game, this is it. If Navy can put up 367 yards rushing, then the Cowboys should also be able to put up at least $180, $200. I mean, we need to get the passing game going, of course, but I think that's going to be relying upon some of these wide receivers. Like, hopefully, Shotomide-King is back alongside Trent Howland and Jalen Davies, because we need a big body beast that's just willing to bully his way into getting the football. We need to see more Josh Ford. Again, the difficulty with the Oregon game was that we didn't do anything. We didn't even try anything. There was no trick plays. There was no trying to get guys in open space, whether it be, I was watching the game last night with a pretty unique play design where they basically ran a counter, but they ran a counter off of the X or Z receiver coming in motion. And then they ran a counter that way where he ran around the running back or the quarterback. It was pretty cool, innovative. That's the stuff that Andy Kotelnicki was always doing at KU. The unbalanced stuff and getting an entire team to shift this way for the play to go this way. We need to do more of that, whether it's Sam Jackson in the backfield, get the ball to Josh Ford more, throw up for more 50-50 balls. The Oregon game was not only frustrating because of the score, but it was because offensively we didn't even try to do anything. We didn't even try to give ourselves an ability to not have a bunch of 3-and-outs. That was more frustrating than anything. We just thought we were going to line up, run our regular plays with our regular dudes, and we were just going to have a regular ball game against Oregon. That's insanity. I mean, look at UT Martin. Their only touchdown was this weird little, wide receiver flea flicker thingy mahabi. It was unique, and it worked. And it was their only touchdown of the game. Why didn't we even try to do something fun against Oregon to at least keep them honest, mix it up? I don't know. But we need to do something. This is the get-right game, so we need to get right because it'll help us get right for Baylor if we get right the right way. All right, y'all. So we're going to have this one right here. As always, I love you. God bless. Go Pokes. Thank you for tuning in to make this your first listen here in Locked On Oklahoma State. You could be anywhere. So happy you choose to be here. Do me a favor, hit the like button if you liked it. Dislike if you didn't, that's okay too. Later, taters.